Good evening, folks. Today is Sunday, June 4th, 2023. It's about 8:15 p.m. It's been a busy couple weeks, let me tell you. I'm glad to be back on my bike. It's been a hot week, but it feels pretty good right now. Probably high 70s, but you know, when you're going 20 miles an hour on a bike, it feels good. It was 86 yesterday. It's supposed to be pushing, like next week's going to be mid-90s, which isn't bad if you don't have a lot of humidity, but we have way too much humidity here in the summertime, so it just doesn't let up. It feels like you're swimming in the air. It's not pretty. So I'm glad to be back out. Let's see, well, we took our trip to Ohio. That was great. It was a long, somewhat stressful trip. Largely stressful because of the tires on our van, our tow vehicle. Kind of a long story, but we got new tires on the van in November, October, and they were
I agreed that was okay.
Anyway, long story. But so Ohio was great. We got to see a lot of family up there, a lot of Molly's family. We stayed at her dad's house in his driveway, which doesn't sound all that special, but it's a 50-acre farm. The driveway is a flat dirt surface right next to his house. So he was able to run power and water to our camper from his house, which was great. He even had sewer there, or had septic, which I didn't even know he had there. Later realized it was 10 or 15 feet further away than I could reach with my hoses. So midway through the trip, I did pack everything up, pull the camper forward about 15 feet, dumped our black tank, backed it back up, set it all back up. It was about a 2-hour process total when all was said and done. Maybe an hour and a half. But anyway, so on the trip, Aaron, first night we got there, he got to drive the old truck, and boy, he drove it so much, had the best time. And what was cool is Eli taught him how to drive that this time. So if you watched my last video, I was talking about how, 4 years ago, our oldest Eli learned to drive when he was 14 on his granddad's old 1990 Toyota stick shift truck with a camper bed full of firewood in the back. Well, this trip, Aaron was 14, he was 14, so he's been anxiously anticipating his turn to learn how to drive. So instead of me teaching him how to drive like I did with Eli, the big brother, got to teach him, which was special. So, handing down the tradition. He's getting it. But they also had a four-wheeler there, which was the star of the show for the week. Because even our 10-year-old could drive the four-wheeler by himself with caution and a helmet. We didn't get helmets till day 2, but that's another story. Anyway, that thing got a ton of use with a 50-acre farm with beautiful pastures and hills, and it's the most beautiful piece of property you've ever seen. I have a short on this channel. It says something about four-wheeling in Ohio or something like that. It's got me and my little girl riding together on it. But that's on that property. So if you want to check that out, it's like a minute. Definitely not Georgia. Georgia's beautiful, but it's a different kind of beautiful up there. Rural Ohio. So we got to hang out with lots of family and ate some good food, did lots of cooking and playing in the creek. My son Jacob, you know, we've tried to catch some crawfish in the creeks here quite a few times. Made special trips to go, and we've tried everything. We've come close to catching them, but we never did. Well, the creek up there is right behind our camper is full of crawfish, and it's a beautiful little creek. The crawdad hunters were successful. Looks like lunch to me. What do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, definitely.
Crystal clear water, nice and cold. And he caught, I don't know, they probably caught 40 or 50 crawdads. So the second day we cooked up about 20 of them. We all ate some. It was special. Got some good footage of that.
Just a little snack.
And yeah, it was good. So then we had Molly's brother Chris, his wife Lisa, and their daughter Leah, who is 9. She and Annabeth are inseparable when they're together, and Jacob too. So they're fun to watch together. So they did all the playing in the mud and the crawfish and the creek and the four-wheelers and all the play pretend stuff. They had a good time. And Jeremiah was there. That's Molly's other brother up there, and he loves to cook. So he cooked an absolute feast on Friday, our last day there. We left on Saturday. Left on Saturday. So he cooked baby back ribs, smoked them all day long. Big low country boil, a big chunk of pork belly that he smoked. Oh man, it was so good. I had a good time. It's just always good to see everybody up there. And then can't forget her sister Katie, who we love and hope to have her down here soon. And then Meemaw. Just the whole group is great. And we got to see the other side of her family. We saw Steve and Carol and cousin Jana and her husband Bill. Met them at the park for a play date. And Jana brought a big bucket of chicken and all the fixings, and ooh, it was good. Kids played for a while. Then her cousin Eric and his wife Jill, they came and hung out with us for about an hour one night, had a couple beers with us, and just sat out by the camper and caught up on stuff. And so then we came home, stayed at the same park on the way back, Levi Jackson State Park in London, Kentucky. And it was crowded then because that was Memorial Day weekend. So on the way up, wasn't many people there. On the way down, it was tough finding a spot. So we kind of panicked. We weren't even sure we were going to find a place because we didn't think about it being Memorial Day. So that was Sunday night. Man, it was packed, but they had one spot for us. We had to call to get it. So then, got home on Monday. Next morning, I had a headshot session and then a wedding that afternoon. So it was a busy, packed kind of thing, and there was no wiggle room for tire problems on the way home because I had to get up the very next morning after getting home that night, do my shoots and the wedding. So, wedding was another interesting story. There were a couple who they've both been married before, and second marriage for them. So it was going to be a sweet, kind of intimate, nice sit-down dinner kind of wedding. They booked me a while ago. Day before the wedding, he ended up in the ICU. The groom did. So, intensive care unit. Bad reaction to a medication he was on. So they rescheduled for this week. So everything was looking good. And I texted her the morning of, hey, we still good? You still want me to show up at 5? She said, let's make it 6. I said, what time's the ceremony? Well, there's no ceremony now. I was like, what? So I just went with the flow. Turns out somewhere in the middle there, they had just decided to get married after church one day. So preacher announced, hey, whoever wants to stick around, we're about to marry these two. So they stood up and had a sweet little ceremony after church, got married right then and there. So it's pretty cool. But what isn't cool for them is that I show up and come to find out they had both been in the ER, the emergency room, over the weekend. And both had the flu. She apparently had food poisoning, but I think her family is all in agreement. It was probably just the flu and hit her a little differently. So she was throwing up and feeling horrible. So she was in and out the whole night. Kind of had to cut pictures short. But we got some sweet pictures, and we had a nice meal. But even during the meal, she kept having to go back and, spend a few minutes alone. It wasn't good. So, take 3. I'm going to meet them down at the Riverwalk whenever they're both feeling well, and finally get the pictures of the two of them that they were hoping for all along. So, I'd rather do that than make them take them when neither of them are feeling well. So, anyway, so that was Tuesday. A couple other things going on after that. And then Friday, 2 days ago, June 2nd, was my 50th birthday. So, so far I'm still alive. As you can see, I'm still riding my bike. Although I sure missed my bike while I was gone. But my mom offered to throw me a birthday party, and my wife and I agreed that would be great if she would like to do that. So we had all my favorite foods, most of my favorite people. We ended up having about 40 people come, and we had 100 buffalo wings, and we had barbecue, Boston butt, and we had scrambled dogs, which is really a local thing here. It means basically chili dogs spread it on a plate with a lot of extra chili on top and all the fixings on top of that, and you just eat it with a fork. We call them scrambled dogs. And then we had a cake that my mom got, which was a very funny story. So she called to order the cake, and the lady said, "What do you want on it?" And she said, "Well, he loves to go camping, so I love a camper on it. And he loves his e-bike, so I want an e-bike on it." Well, for some reason, the lady thought that she said he raises chickens, he goes camping, and he rides an e-bike. So when it came time to make the cake, the lady said, "Well, I don't have room for everything," so she just went with the first thing on the list, the first thing she mentioned, since that must have been the most important, which was that I raised chickens. Well, I've never had a chicken. I don't have anything to do with chickens other than eating them. Never raised chickens. I don't know where she got that. So I got this big old birthday cake with 2 big old chickens that said "Happy 50th birthday, Ritchie." It was awesome. My mom was so mad, but I thought it was great, and we all got a good laugh, and it was a perfect, topic of conversation, talking point. So I'm gonna turn around here because I didn't mean to go this far as usual. It's been 8.5 miles. So anyway, it was made for a good laugh. And it was a good cake. Actually, I haven't even had any of it yet. I ate too much of the other stuff, but so the next day when I had a wedding, so another wedding, I had a wedding Saturday morning, slightly out of town, morning after my birthday and birthday party, so I couldn't get too wild and crazy on my birthday, but it was at a farm and they had a lot of animals there, including a chicken coop with a bunch of chickens in it, so I sent my mom and my sister and my wife a picture of me with the chicken coop, and it just said, "What a beautiful day for tending to my chickens." So that got a good laugh. Anyway, I wasn't even going to do a video today, but I was just going to go for a quiet ride because I'm kind of tired, but I knew I would forget 90% of that stuff if I waited even another day or two. And I have another busy week this week. So, I know you don't want to hear all that stuff, but it's there for someday in the future. If my kids ever want to hear about all that stuff, it's there. And if I ever want to go back and remember things, yet again, it's there. But anyway, I might just ride for a few minutes. Keep it rolling, less talking. Oh, I did want to say, a huge shout out to my mom and to my wife and to my sister who did a lot of prep work, landscaping and stuff that they didn't need to do. Some of that as far as making the house and yard look great and everything. For my birthday party, I wanted it to be low-key, casual. But they really threw their hearts and souls into making me feel special and inviting all my friends. I got a good group shot of most of us. There were a few that had already left, and one of us had to take the picture, so I took one without me in it, and then my son took one with me in it but without him in it, and maybe I'll blend them together. But anyway, it was a really sweet time. It was better than I had even kind of imagined it being in my head. I enjoyed every minute of it. Felt very special and celebrated. So I'm not normally into that thing that much, but 50 is a big deal, and so I think it was good for me. And hopefully everybody else enjoyed it too. We had more kids and parents there, I think, which I like too, because so many of our friends. Hey, thank you. So many of our friends have kids. So one family has 5 kids over there. Ugh. Just swallowed a bug. That was good. So my friend Mark, who I talked about before, who started our Violin Brew music and beer club, he's in his 70s. Great guy, love him to death. He was at my 30th birthday party, and he was at my 40th birthday party, and he was gonna be at this one, and he said he'd be there, and we talked about it many times. And for whatever reason, he's got a lot going on. His wife's been sick. He has a house a couple hours from here, and so he kind of goes back and forth between here, his home here, and where the rest of his family is up in Canton. So we were chatting 2 days before my birthday, on Wednesday. I said, "Are you in town yet?" He said, "No. Maybe I might come home this weekend." I was like, "So you're not going to be at my party?" And he was like, "Oh crap, I totally forgot. I even canceled some doctor's appointments so that I could stay here." To be honest, I was a little, it made me sad, just because I, had anticipated him being there. He was one of the main, if not the main person, one of the top 3 people that I really wanted there, that was special to me. It was important to me that he make it. So I was a little bummed. So I messaged him again a couple hours later. He said, "Don't say another word about it. I've already set the ball in motion. I'm hoping to drive into town tomorrow." And sure enough, he showed up. He made it, and that meant the world to me. So Mark, I appreciate it more than you know. It's not something I'll ever forget. I'm so glad you made it. It was great to have you there. So, just when I said I was going to be quiet and not talk so much, I went and gave another 10-minute speech. But when I'm at home with 6 loud kids in a small house, everybody fighting for everybody's attention, you got to get in line to say anything to anybody. So this way, I've got you guys captive. You probably have me muted if you're smart, but I can just talk about the most random things this way while getting exercise. This bike, I never get tired of riding. Every single time when I get home, I'm sad to put it away. I want to just keep going, because this is my thing right here. I'm a little bit ADD. I would hate an exercise bike or elliptical machine or treadmill. I've tried those in the past, and it's more of a monotony thing and attention span and boredom kind of thing. Very low tolerance for it. But this, it just doesn't get old, even when I'm riding quietly, because the scenery's always changing, and it's almost like driving a car, which I enjoy that too, even on our long trip. So the trip to Ohio was 1,700 miles round trip, and in a car or even a van without a camper, it wouldn't be that bad. But it's a hairy kind of thing anyway, a little scary, a little bit nerve-wracking to be white-knuckling on guard the whole time. And I shouldn't make it sound like it's dangerous, but it's really just more of you're very alert and aware, running on adrenaline a little bit the whole time, making sure that nothing goes wrong. And you can't take your eyes off the road even for a half second, like to check a text or anything, because you can lose control so quickly. So 1,700 miles of that it felt like a million. But so the first day I told you we stayed in Kentucky. Well, from the time that we were hitched and literally pulling out of town, from the time we were driving out of our town to the time we got to our campsite in Kentucky, it was 10 hours. And that's including the flat tire, which added another hour and a half, which should have taken more than that. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours extra. But 10 hours that we were in the van, except for when we got out for a little while and at the tire shop. And the next day, from Kentucky to Ohio, was 8 hours. So it's 18 hours up there. And almost the same on the way back. It was 16 on the way back total. So it's 8 hours each day on the way back because there weren't any mishaps. But it was Memorial Day, and I kind of wish those people didn't just stop if you don't push the button. So there's a button you can push and the lights come on, tell everybody to stop. But if it doesn't do that, if I'm stopped, clearly I'm stopped and I haven't pushed the button, that means I'm willing to wait for a clearance. But anyway, it was very nice of that person to stop, but they shouldn't. I hate for them to feel like they have to. So anyway, 2 8-hour legs on the way back, a 10-hour and an 8-hour on the way up. Wedding the next day. I'm a little tired. The sky, I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of dramatic looking. The funeral home right there, Mullen Funeral Home and Crematorium. That's where my dad's funeral was. He died 7 years ago of Parkinson's disease. I'll talk more about him one day on here. But he decided to be cremated, so I remember very well going and picking up his ashes there. And sitting down and filling out all the paperwork and all that. And then a year or two later, we lost a little girl at 28 weeks gestation with trisomy 18. We fought for her, but she didn't make it. And she lived 28 weeks in mommy's tummy. And so we had her cremated there too. So have her ashes sitting on our dresser next to my dad's ashes. You just don't ever plan for having two close family members' ashes sitting on your dresser all within, a year and a half of each other? It was a lot. So, anyway, I got to spend a ton of time with my dad. He and I were really close. He had Parkinson's for about 10 years, and I have no regrets. I thankfully lived in the same town as him, and at the time I worked for myself, and so I was able to get away from work and just carve out time, which not everybody can do. So he and I had a tradition of I would pick him up and we'd go to lunch together every week. For years it was a Tuesday, then for years it was a Wednesday. But I would schedule around it no matter what. We would always go. And even when he was sick, especially when he was sick, I would go pick him up and I would take him to lunch. My friend Paul would come meet us every week. And my dad's friend Bill would come every week. My dad's friend Joe would come every week. And we had the best time. And I grew up with those two guys being by my dad's side since I was a little boy. I mean, all my life. We were fishing, we were playing golf, anything. They were there, Bill and Joe. So they were part of our lunch group. And my friend Paul, who was my best friend since I was 6 and he was 5. His loyal friend, always came. It's a special time. And there were some weeks later in my dad's life where it just didn't make sense to go pick him up. But we always tried. He had dementia, and someone said come to pick him up, and he would, what are you here? What are you doing here? And he would, kind of forget what we were doing, and sometimes he couldn't eat well. He certainly couldn't read the menu well and make sense of it, but you just push through awkward and uncomfortable in times like that because it's worth it. And that's why I say I have no regrets. I was honored to serve him in that way and spend time with him every chance I got. And there became a time where he was at home in a wheelchair and he couldn't eat. You'd have to spoon feed him, and we would just sit and have a meal together. And there weren't words, and there didn't need to be. It was okay. And so I miss him every day. I looked up to him a lot. And nobody's perfect, but he had a big heart. And he loved me, and he loved me well. And so, anyway, and he also became a Christian late in life, which we always prayed for. Never really, truly, maybe at least me, never really believed that could happen. Only because he was so anti-God, anti-everything when it came to faith. He lived in the now. I think he was just angry at God for many, many years. And after he became sick, or maybe before, I can't remember, but one day he asked my mom to take him to church where we go to church. He said, I want to go where Ritchie and Molly go and go to church with you guys. So we started coming. Soon after, he said, I want to join a community group, which is like a Sunday school group kind of thing. You meet in homes. So they did. And one night he asked his group to pray for him. And he accepted Christ right then and there. And his friends have since told me that his whole life had changed. Like, they would sit in that group and he was just a changed man. And, my mom would read the Bible to him every day and they would sit together. And so just wouldn't have believed it, kind of thing. It's amazing what can happen. So I guess again, there was no quiet in my ride today. I'm just talking. And it's getting dark, as you can see. Switch to this one. I'll switch to my 1-to-1 camera because I think it has better low light. It might be too dark to even see anything on the camera at this point. And I still have about 4 or 5 miles from home. This is back at Miller Road again. I'm gonna go the long way home because it's safer. Avoid the road. My son Aaron, he's 14. He's going to Sold Out youth camp tomorrow in Panama City Beach, Florida. There are 600 kids from 28 churches, I think. Our pastor said, check out this little gas yard over here. It's a pretty cool thing. They've been doing it for 20-something years. And yeah, 600 and something kids going. And it's started by Jonathan and Lisa Moore, who is our pastor, and his wife. They're incredible musicians. They used to kind of be a big name Christian group that toured the country, and they still do a little bit. They still write and record. But then he became a youth pastor at one of the biggest churches in town for a few years. And now he planted his own church, which we've been at for a little over a year. And it's awesome. We love it there. He's one of my good friends now. And I did the photography for their album cover 10 years ago, which was kind of their big release, or was meant to be anyway. I don't know how much it took off, but anyway, excited for him. They went last year and he loved every minute of it. Eli is in college now, so he can't go, but his girlfriend Naomi is going, and so he's in a little bit of a pouty mood today because she's going to be gone for a week, which I understand, especially since he didn't start classes back until Thursday, so he's got a few days at home on break without his girlfriend. But she went to Ohio with us, which was wonderful. So for what he's missing out this week he made up for lost time by being no more than a few feet from her for 8-9 days. So she fits right in, and we had a good time. So I was so glad that he was able to go with us, and that she was able to go and meet Molly's family and see the farm. The farm, again, is 50 acres, and I'm gonna definitely save this story for another time because it's an emotional one, and I don't have time in this video. I can only tell so many stories. But it's 50 acres. Long story made short, her dad divided it into 5 portions many years ago, before he knew his daughter, my wife, in hopes that he would find her again. And he allotted 10 acres for her, as well as each of his other kids. And so the piece of property that my little girl are riding on and I are riding on a 4-wheeler down that big beautiful hill is our piece of that property. Currently it's his, but it's allotted for us whenever we want it. So his son Chris is already starting to try to build on it for himself, and they all spend a lot of time on that land, and he lives on it. Her dad lives on it. But how that'll play out, I don't know. But you know, one day maybe we'll have a cabin up there, or maybe we'll take a camper, and when we retire this camper, we'll plant it on that property for a few years and buy a different camper to use for travel. Or maybe one day one of my kids will build on it. Who knows? I can't really afford to build anything on it right now, but it's great to know that it's there. I'm feeling some raindrops. He's a very, very special man. We adore him and his whole family. He means the world to my wife and to me too. He's just a sweet, gentle, kind, generous soul. Alright, Billings Road. I'll get off here. Head back to my neighborhood. Ooh, saw some lightning, I think. Either that or car headlights. Oh yeah, that was lightning because there's thunder. Cool, I might get rained on. I'll drive fast now. This bike will scoot. I'm not pedaling now, and you saw me 28, 29 miles an hour just on flat ground. It just takes off, and honestly, that's as fast as I would want to go on this thing. Oh yeah, this storm's coming in quick. I don't know if y'all can see that lightning, but I love riding on a big heavy metal bike. My wife's probably texting me or at least watching me on my 360 to see where the heck I am. I told you I get carried away on this thing. I just go and go. The sky's pretty over that way though. There's 30. I'm riding up a steep hill now, still at 24 miles an hour. I weigh 185 pounds. The person had their window down on her, so watch out for that bicycle. Ooh, that lightning's coming up. I love storms. Maybe not in this format. Yeehaw! Those big old raindrops. Feels pretty good, honestly. Rain is coming down. I don't know if you can see it or hear it. Smells so much weed in this neighborhood, even out in the rain. Yeah, I'm glad I stopped and turned around when I did, because I did not know it was going to rain. Home now. I love watching YouTube channels of people who deliver food on their e-bikes, especially in big cities like London. There's some pretty good ones out there, and so they're doing Uber Eats and all those kind of things. So they're just riding around their bikes and these offers pop up and they just take the ones they want. And they go pick up usually McDonald's or whatever, Chipotle or whatever, drive it through traffic, take it to their recipient, get paid, go to the next one. They don't make a lot of money, but there was another big patch of weeds now. Yeah, I'm getting soaked now. Yeah, I'm glad I got a fast bike. There's the red Jeep guy I talked about. Alright, surely you can hear the rain by now. If you couldn't before, ain't no denying it. It is coming down. And we're home. Thank y'all for watching and listening to my long stories. Have a great one.